Hey folks, and welcome to another live video here at Comics, Clerics, and Controllers. Again, we are going with an interview today for all of you guys to tune in. We'll be talking to Rob McBride of the upcoming game OverBattle behind development.
So what got me into gaming? I am a dyed-in-the-wool war gamer. So I've got lots and lots of, probably decades actually, in the Axis and Allies, World War II, typical multiple hours type of setup games. That's what we've done for years. We graduated from the original Axis and Allies and seen how it was a little broken and how we wanted to make it a little better, and bought every expansion we could come up with, little side expansions. I remember one time spending $40 on a baggie of instructions and 2 little pieces. We were really dedicated to that wargaming space. And so as we kept growing and we moved on to a couple games, there's a game by Jeff Stein called The World at War. He relates it to like Axis and Allies on steroids. We sort of gravitated to that and had this big war game going. And then we thought, you know what, we could create our own war game. That's the genesis of OverBattle. As we started to create our own war game, we thought maybe we put this in space. And so OverBattle was absolute 100% classic area control territory war game set in space. Once we decided to do that, we decided, okay, I think we've got something here. Let's create a company to go around it, and then let's start to flesh out a story arc. And so we wrote a couple hundred pages now with my writers out of Chicago, giving the back depth of who the characters are, why they're at war, how they found themselves at war, and how potentially they're going to get themselves out of war. Then we overlaid the game on top of that. And so the story plays into the game plays into the story. And that's part of what makes it really, really cool.
Awesome. So it's almost kind of a living war game, Infinity by Corvus Belli.
Once you understand some of the backstory art, then that plays through and you say, oh, I get this, I see it. I've been at 9 conventions since Gen Con, and I'll have people come up to the booth. Previous players will sit there and start answering the questions for the other players, and they've only played one. But they have themselves positioned as this, hey, I know what's going on, I understand it, and it's really fun. It's fun to see the community develop. It's fun to see the game, the way it has matured. It's ready. It's a lot of fun. But yes, absolutely. Living story, playing into it. You don't have to read the book to understand what's going on and go through the different factions. There's 2 via the expansion. The 4 factions, 3 play alike. 1 is something completely new to gaming. He shows up as a refugee, but he's really not a refugee. He has his own intentions, and he ends as a mercenary, where he's going to be at war with everybody. And so inside of his role, while we have this war game going on, inside of his role, he's got some engine building, he's got some worker placement, he has a lot of these touches in other genres that sort of bring everything together, and it's something special. You're going to like it, Cameron. You're going to like it a lot.
Sounds it. I have slowly been getting more and more into wargaming. The reason I mentioned Infinity is because one of my friends, Wyatt, introduced me and a group of our other friends to Infinity, sort of first as the war game, and then we found the RPG of it. So I'm curious, do you think there could be potential for OverBattle to develop that RPG component where you see a lot of other war games like Infinity, like Warhammer 40K, Warhammer Fantasy, have developed that?
As I look at our family tree, and I mentioned Axis and Allies before. If you have Axis and Allies and you have, say, Twilight Imperium, and you have those 2, we're in the same family tree. OverBattle has its own branch of its tree. We're in the same tree. Currently, Warhammer, we have mechs, they have mechs. We have fighting ground units, they have fighting ground units. Mine are little guys, 20 to 40 millimeter size, because there's 1,000 pieces on the board. I would say Warhammer is in the same forest. We're not in the same tree, but we're in the same forest. So with Axis and Allies and TI being on the same family tree, and we have our own branch, Warhammer has its own tree in our same forest. To answer your question specifically, we've had folks say, hey, you know what, this could be a great RPG. The potential? Absolutely. I've got a few folks that are looking at it from a screenplay perspective. It'd be nice to see it up on the big screen as a movie. I don't want to get the cart in front of the horse, but the potential is pretty wide. We're focused right now on getting the base game out, getting that Kickstarter launched on March 19th, and then coming right back around with the 5th and 6th player expansion. That sort of helps wrap up that story arc. We can do all kinds of things.
So do you see any potential to expand sort of beyond just expansions for OverBattle, but sort of build other games inside
we have on the whiteboard a few arcs as we go forward and backwards in time for OverBattle as OverBattle plays. And so once folks get the understanding of how that plays, how about a prequel? How did these races become who they are? So we've got some prequel stuff. How about some post work? Where do they go after the war? What happens in that genre? And some really cool stuff within the OverBattle look and feel. So it's a three-part answer, actually. Inside of the game, 6 different scenarios. The prime story is the story arc. Then we have some fun games. So with a war game, where it could be an hour a player, so 4 players, 4 hours. We just had the Dukes of Dice play in Albuquerque, and they finished in 2 hours and 40 minutes. Full game, 4 players, 2 hours and 40 minutes. That's fast. That's super fast for a war game, but they're war gamers. Inside of the game, once you know the mechanics and know how stuff plays, we have a capture the flag. We put a moon in the middle. We put 1,000 credits in each corner, and you build your armies, and it's basically a race to capture the flag. We have a race down and back. You're racing down, you're fighting all the way down the board. You're racing back, you're fighting all the way back up the board. First one back wins. And so we've got these little mini games built into the game. And then one of our partners, I got a good friend named Joe Boyden, who's got a game called Continuum that we're working with. Joe took OverBattle and said, hey, how about some little side games? And so now we'll include, as a part of the Kickstarter, we've got some games within the games that use our components. And so that in turn gives a whole nother ripple to the OverBattle universe. So there's 3. There's 3 answers for you.
Very cool, very cool. I like that. I like the fact that, you know, I find it very fun when you have like one game that you buy and it has those multiple different components and different game modes, because sometimes, for instance, when me and my brother first got Risk, which is the most basic of war games, there isn't really many other ways to play Risk other than you know, the one set game. But then with something like what you're talking about with OverBattle, where it has multiple different types of play, I like that because then you can always have something new and something different, even if it's the same game piece.
We've got 250 pieces and a lockable box at all 4 corners of the table. In that, there are area control crystals, there are shields, there are different things, but in terms of actual military pieces, there's over 140 per race. So then I've got planets, moons, and asteroids that are fully variable. And so when you set up the game, it'll never play the same twice, because you may put a planet here this time, you may put it over here the next time. And so with those components, planets, moons, and asteroids, mechs, tanks, infantry, battleships, and destroyers, we can do all kinds of stuff. And so building out the mini games that use the components and not necessarily the whole board has been interesting and pretty fun. And then being able to play the actual story arc is a blast. Something to note, the story game plays 30 inches by 6 feet. So it fits exactly on a pop-up table. So no overlap, no unused space. However, the game is modular, where you can use just half the board for a 2-player game, or 3/4 of the board for a 3-player game. But if you do the whole board, it's a full 6 feet, and we're moving 1,000 pieces over 6 feet in about an hour a player. It's pretty smooth. There's a lot of going on, a lot of action, a lot of strategy. I had a reviewer tell me, you took the first 2 hours of every war game that we hated, and you stripped it away, and you got right to the good stuff. And I said, well, as war gamers, that was one of our things. We wanted to figure out, how do we get rid of this 45 minutes of setting up the game before you ever get to play? So setup becomes part of the game. We actually integrate the setup right into the game. How do we eliminate the data component that everything's always in the same place? You start the game in the same way. What if you started checkers with your stuff out in the middle? Right? Wouldn't that be different than playing checkers from one side to the other? We always play checkers from one side to the other. War games do the same thing. If I'm playing classic World War II, Germany's always in the same place. Russia's always in the same place. America's always in the same place. With those, you have this opening strategy. I know I'm going to do this if you do that. We fixed it. We have a completely variable setup. Your home world, Cameron, will be over here this time. Rob's home world's going to be over there next time. And then if that didn't work, we'll switch it up. We'll fight in a different way. It didn't work because I didn't win. I'm going to put my planet somewhere else next time. And so that variable and customized strategy plays out a lot too.
Gotcha. So before we wrap things up, do you want to tell folks where they can find you online, sort of what to look out for in the future and what things
Absolutely.
are coming
Sounds
down
fantastic.
the pipeline?
Thank you so much. We have overbattle.com. That's going to roll up to a landing page that we're working on right now. You can find us on Facebook at Overbattle. You can find us on Facebook at Scyther Gaming. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Scyther Gaming Co. So lots of gameplay photos, lots of game art, highly visual stuff up there on Facebook on both the Overbattle and the Scyther Gaming site. We will be at SaltCon in Salt Lake City or Layton, Utah at the end of this month. That's a 2,500 person regional convention. We're a sponsor of that event, so we're there. I've got live tables set up and ready to play. And then we actually launch our Kickstarter on March 19th. So we'd love to have everyone's support on day one, right? The better you do at the beginning, the easier the ride. So March 19th for folks. Yeah,
absolutely.
If anybody out there looking for something that is gonna change gaming a little bit, that's March 19th. And then at the end of March, Cameron, we're going to be in PAX East. I'm going to be at PAX East. So I know you're sort of close. If I get you a ticket for Sunday, if you want to come on out to see us at our booth at PAX East. That's in Boston. Love to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. We will figure out the nitty and gritty. And thank you again so much for coming on the show. And
awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been great having you on. Definitely, definitely. And for the rest of you guys, make sure to crack open some new games and give it a go. And make sure to go to all the places that Rob was just telling you about to support OverBattle and Scyther Gaming. Have a good day, folks.